Welcome to the MaxBet Podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything gaming. I'm Landon Jones, here with Mike McKiskey. Let's get started.
What is going on, my brother? How are you, man?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy Chinese New Year to you, sir. It's our year, man. We are the oxen.
Boom, boom. We are the ox.
Yeah, I always laugh.
Isn't it supposed to be like our year? It's supposed to be good luck, right? When it's your year.
Yeah, it's like I always think of like George Costanza. It's like the year of George. Or for us, it's the year of the ox. So we're supposed to have a good year. Hopefully in every way. I don't know which way exactly, but I'll take it in, whatever. Financial, family, whatever you want to give me. World. I'll take the good fortune.
You look like an ox. See, I look like I would be a runt ox. They would have probably killed me.
That's a funny one. So I wonder like what you would be if you just looked like if you went with the sign you looked like. Yeah, I probably am most ox-like. And just looking at all of them here, you would probably be a dog or a rabbit, maybe. Right? Like I'm looking, maybe a monkey. I don't know. What would you be? You're not a tiger or a dragon.
Oh, that's so
But
funny.
in good news, you're not a snake or a rat either. So we'll figure it out. So who knows? But yeah, I'll take the ox.
I'll be a runt ox. I don't care. I'm still
Runt
cruising
ox,
with the pack. So
That's
all
it,
good.
so-
Watch out. We're coming hard.
What might blow everyone's minds listening to this is realizing that you and I were born in the same year. I feel like every time when people address us, they pull me aside. They go, Mike, man, these young kids like Landon. I'm like, he's the same as me. I'm 3 months older than him, but I'll take the credit for being an older, wiser soul.
How about when we were walking into Saquon and I got ID'd and you didn't?
Yeah.
I was like,
They
what's
just look
up
at me.
this
They
guy?
go, look at the ox. Let him in. And then the little puppy dog here, we're going to card him. Yeah. Unbelievable. So
That's so funny.
Good
What's
stuff.
going on with you, man? What's new?
Oh, everything and nothing all at the same time, man. I'm excited about some of the stuff we're doing for MaxBet. I've been having a good time watching your slot videos. Got to cameo in one of those, which is exciting.
Yeah, we're blowing up on TikTok. Our social media guy that runs our social media told us to get on TikTok, and I'm like, yeah, it's for the kids. Not really. There's a lot of people on TikTok. In 2 weeks we had over 200,000 views. It's just weird.
It's funny, man. Just playing online. So there's a casino website. What is it called? Playchumba.com. So you can play there, and then just in the living room playing, winning some money.
For real money.
Like a bunch of fools. Yeah, no, I know. That's what was fascinating.
Yeah, it's a sweepstakes version.
It's legal, but it's wild. So seeing that. Yeah.
You came in one of our videos as a.
I was laughing because we did the video, and then like the next day, you're like, so that's been seen 27,000 times. I'm like, that was yesterday you posted. It's like, yeah, it went crazy. So it's funny to see how like every fourth video just goes banana lands, and there's really no rhyme or reason.
I love the comments when people are like, "Get a life." Like,
we do. We just won $1,000. That's a life, right? Come on, that counts for something. My favorite is the one. It's not actually a slot play video. It's a video of you getting paid out your $20,000 win at Thunder Valley Casino.
Yeah.
And then the song you guys picked to me is hilarious. It's like, oops, we just made a bunch of money. So it's like, how good is that? Funny. Oh man. So yeah. So anyone out there want to check that out? What is it? At MaxBet Slots.
It's MaxBet Slots on TikTok. We're going to change it to MaxBet Media, but right now you can search MaxBet Slots. It's on TikTok. We're on, we also have a YouTube channel, both for the podcast and for the Slots channel. So the YouTube channel is MaxBet Slots. The podcast channel is MaxBet Media. If you guys check it out, like and subscribe, it's pretty fun stuff. And we're just kind of, I guess, raising the bar for MaxBet Media as what we cover within the gaming world. So.
Yeah, it's fun watching your face change. Like, I don't think there's anything, not just you. I mean, you and Kevin obviously together, but, even watching myself play the game was interesting, but just the real excitement or the real emotion that crosses the face of a gambler when they're playing and winning or losing, right? Because there's definitely clips where you're showing like, hey, the money's going pretty fast. Like we're betting max or whatever. And it's like, hey, we lost $800 in 4 seconds. It felt like, and then you hit a big one, right?
The funny story about Kevin being in those videos, originally he wasn't going to be, but he's also our video guy. So he came over to help me set up the green screens and the cameras and the lights and all the stuff that it takes to be able to record that. Yeah. And as we were just doing like a test, we were playing just to see where we were on the green screen. And he goes, wait, why didn't you win there? Because we got nothing. He's like, oh, I've never played slots. And then it just became funny that he was in the videos. Yeah. So now he's just, he's a regular for the MaxBet Slots channel.
Yeah, it's funny, especially seeing some of his like how like he's just so confused. He's like, well, how did I win $400 or how did I just lose? Like it should have been good. And you're like, oh well, that's line pay game, right,
That's
bud? Like
slots.
symbols are there, but they don't connect, right, or whatever. So yeah, it's just funny watching him, like any new gambler really, but him in particular.
To his credit, he is definitely getting more knowledgeable. So
well, I think we might have broken the guy. Yeah, he went hard in the paint then. So then we're getting texts offline going, hey, we weren't filming, but I was playing. I won $2,000 or what do you win, like $10,000 on one of them? Just like, I just at my house board. Just like, dude, you're in it now. Gamble responsibly.
We've played probably 100 hours worth.
That's wild.
And he did. He was at his house playing by himself just to learn and won $10,000.
So good.
So.
Oh man.
All right. Well, cool. So what do we got going on this week? Who are we interviewing? We're Gene Venneman.
Gene Venneman. Yeah. So she is, in my mind, a legend. She was one of my early bosses in the business. So she's been everywhere. She started her career at IGT. We'll obviously ask her about a lot of this. Did a long run there. I don't know how long, she'll have to tell us. And then I met her at Bally. So she came in, she was the vice president of product management at Bally back, I don't know, 2008, 2009 ish. And that's when I met her. And then she's just gone on to do bigger and better things. Right now, she's chief commercial officer for Gaming Arts. So obviously running and gunning there and hasn't stopped. One of the more impressive people, I would say, in the biz, just knowing her for as long as I have. And, I always laugh. I'm like, happens to be a lady. Doesn't mean that, it shouldn't matter, but she's also a very, very effective executive regardless. But yeah, I'm excited. So I'll be excited to see what kind of some of her fun stories, because I know she has a lot of them.
Yeah, I'll be excited to ask her what their kind of mission is at Gaming Arts, or what their strategy is going forward, because they've been doing a pretty good job out in the industry getting their games out, and people seem to like their games. And so fascinating to be able to chat with her. And rock and roll.
That's it, man. And then right before we kick it to her, we just wanted to say we were getting a lot of texts, complimentary, which is great. So we appreciate all the love you guys are sharing. If you want to help us out, just hit whatever platform you listen on. So whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, kick us a like, kick us a subscribe. That'd be helpful for us. It helps us online with getting more viewers and just different eyeballs and ears on the show. So we really appreciate you guys for listening. And if you wanted to do that, and then also we're always open to discussing potential sponsorship. So if you're interested in that, saying, hey, can this help my company or help my brand? We'll talk about it, let you know. I mean, we're not just an open book, but we're happy to have some of those conversations.
Yep. And speaking of one of our current sponsors, we have Eilers EKG. So thank you guys. And also Gaming Arts.
Gaming Analytics. Gaming Arts is our interview. Gaming Analytics is the sponsor. All good. GA. GA is a good way to be.
Redo.
No redos. We're all good. We're all in. But yeah, so Gaming Analytics is awesome. And I think we've been talking about that. And for me, it's just fascinating because it's so new. It's not even that new, but to me, it's new. It's like this world of AI. And you sit there and you go, well, what does that even mean? And how can that really help you? And it's just learning more about it, whether it's broad AI, just outside of gaming, or specifically here, learning some of the tangible applications has been fascinating, right? Like walking through kind of some of the metrics where they go, look, we can identify players who are about to leave, right? Like we know that Landon's a big gambler and he's been gambling whatever, but now red alert, he's not happy. So whatever that is, he's about to go. And it actually flags it so the casino can go, okay, well, we're going to call Landon and try to engage him, because it's cheaper to keep him than it is to go out and get the next guy, which is mind blowing.
Yeah. And so it's tough to qualify or quantify whether or not this investment is worth putting in at your property. But right there, you just said, I mean, the cost of acquiring a player is much higher, right? So if you have any ability to be able to stop that before it happens, I mean, I don't know how many players it would take to make up for your investment in Gaming Analytics, but it's probably not a lot in terms of a monthly cost. So
no doubt.
I would love to do a demo on here at some point.
Well, Kieran's coming on, so I don't know if we can do the demo or what, but he's definitely going to come on and talk about it. So we'll see if the tech can allow us to screenshot or see some of that, which is just see it in real time, which is fascinating. But in the meantime, if you guys want to check it out, gaminganalytics.ai, or you can just ping us and we'll set you up with their team. And those guys are humble geniuses, so they're happy to take your call and educate you or teach you more about it. So.
And Gaming Arts, if you want to sponsor us, that's your chance right there. Because apparently I thought you were your sponsor. So let's jump into the interview with Gene.
That's it. Awesome. I'm famous for not welcoming people because we talk and then I start recording. So I'll just start off by saying, Gene, thank you for joining us on the show and appreciate you coming on. Welcome.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
So what's happening in the big Reno area? You guys getting just snowed on? Is it just banana lands right now with the winter? Or is it pretty mild?
Actually, no, it's been pretty mild this year. Like, unfortunately mild, I think, for the skiers. Hopefully we get a little bit more. It hasn't been the best ski season. But down here in the valley, I don't mind not having, we had 1 week where we had some snow where I was out shoveling, but other than that, it's been pretty mild. But we got maybe a month before we're kind of out of the woods. So we'll see what happens in the next bit.
Yeah.
Are your corporate offices based out of Reno or in Vegas?
No, actually Vegas.
Okay.
So for the first year I was down there 4 days every week.
Oh, wow.
And then the second year I was down there 3 days every week. And then COVID hit and I kind of go every other week, which, the nice thing about COVID, if you will, if there is a silver lining, it's people are more used to seeing people work from home and to be on video and in their office. I still think office time is very, very important. So I'm glad when I can always be in the office, but it's nice to be able to work remote too.
Yeah, that's great. I know I talked to Sherry. She goes to Vegas a lot. So she's always talking about the office, and she's a big cheerleader for you guys. So shout out to her. She'll love that.
Yeah,
and she's a big fan of the podcast.
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah. Love it. I was gonna say you probably got more Southwest Hilton points than anybody going that kind of schedule.
A little bit. I do know some of the gate agents by name.
Yeah.
And
hey Tom, Barbara, all good.
Sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like just wave you through. All right, Gene. We know by now you're not a problem. Just cruise on in. That's great. So I think everyone knows who you are, Gene, right? So I mean, you've been in the gaming biz for a long time and done quite a bit, which we'll chat about. But lately you're at Gaming Arts, Chief Commercial Officer, if I'm getting that right.
That's right.
Perfect. I was talking to Adam Whitehurst before we came on. I said, I don't know if you're going to blast me for it. I said, but there was definitely a time in our career where I completely embarrassed myself by not remembering your title. I don't know if you remember that. We were, so we were at Pachanga, Lanny. You'll appreciate this. So Jean was my boss, by the way. So she's the vice president of division.
Okay.
And we're out with customers, and I had a few drinks in my system, not too many, but enough to throw me off my game. And so then I introduced Jean in front of like this crazy audience of important people as like the director. And everyone stops and looks at me and I'm like, yeah, I totally just screwed that up. And she was so graceful about it. She's like, yeah, no big deal. It happens all the time. Like, all good. And just played it off. But man, I was like, I'm never going to forget her title ever again. I'm going to double check the notes. So
anytime I can see you embarrassed it's a happy day for me.
Man, I run hard. So whenever I step in it, I step in it good, dude. So it's,
I feel, so didn't I catch you sort of at the beginning of your career?
Yeah. We were,
what year did you start Valley?
2008, I want to say. And then, so would you come 2009,
I came 2010. So I think that's when we were
early days.
When he was just a little puppy.
Right. And the early days of me being allowed to see customers, I'd say, right? So the first year and a half, they kind of keep you locked up. And then I was invited to go out.
But we always knew you had huge potential. I'm not surprised at all to see where you're at.
Well, thank you. So good. Well, appreciate that. As people that close to me know, I do horrible with compliments. I'm going to just shift the attention back to you. So we all know you as a seasoned pro and gaming executive, but how'd you get into the biz? I think you said something about you were like an office admin to start off.
Yeah. So it is a bizarre story how it was not necessarily a calculated decision to come into gaming. It was sort of accidental. Yeah. So going way back in the day when you guys were still like, in like not even elementary school, maybe.
We don't have to time
1992 we're talking. So way back in the day, I was also fresh out of college and I was dating a guy from Holland and thought, oh, that sounds fun. Let's live in Holland for a little while. And so, right. And I was in my early 20s and thought, if I'm going to do that kind of thing, now's the time to do it. So, so I moved to Europe, not having any idea what to expect. And I wanted to find some sort of work. And so I was starting so before I got my job at IGT, by the way, I was a cosmetics packer at Lancome, where I was literally packing like all the mascaras and everything.
Putting it in boxes.
Down the assembly line. But so I saw an ad in English in the Dutch paper, which was kind of unusual. And I was like, oh, I know that language, So I faxed my resume and they called me like quickly and it was IGT. And It was 1992 and they were just opening an office in Holland. And I was the 9th employee for IGT Europe. So I came in and they were kind of like, yeah, we like you. We don't know what we want to do with you yet. But, so for now, we're going to do some office stuff and just see what goes on. And so I was doing like expense reports and typing invoices for machines back when we actually typed a machine invoice on a typewriter. I mean, that's how far back we're going. And I did that for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. And then they were like, you know what? We think you might be good in sales. Let's throw you in sales and see what happens. And so I had a couple of local mentors that said, we'll take you under our wing and show you the ropes. And so I ended up selling for IGT for 4 years in Europe. And I
Wow.
had like an amazing territory. I had Italy and Portugal and Scandinavian countries and Austria. And it was really,
Wow.
it was a fantastic time. And back then, a lot of the casinos didn't open till like 4 or 5 o'clock. So I would get to a location in the morning and I would have like the whole day free to do whatever I wanted. And then I would start my day by meeting the customer for dinner.
Wow.
And then we'd walk his floor and, and then kind of carry on business. But it was awesome. So I started in Europe and I was there for 4 years, as I said, doing sales. But all good things, I think, must come to an end. And after running around Europe for that long, I was like, okay, I'm a little bit tired of being on the road all the time. I mean, I was literally in a different country every single week. And it was before the euro as well. So I'd have like a wallet like this big with all like the local currencies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what country am I in? What do I have to pay in now?
Well, yeah, just fan it out. Go, I don't know. Take what works for you.
Yeah. And my
That's
passport
crazy.
had to get like more, because every time I went to a country in Europe, I had to get my passport stamped. And so it was the whole thing. So after a while, I thought, you know what, I'm good with this experience. It's been awesome, but I want to move on. And so IGT was gracious enough to say, hey, we really like you. Let's move you to Reno and see.
They didn't like you that much.
Yeah. So
Europe to Reno.
From Holland to Reno. That's, I mean, I guess that's a career org chart upgrade, but man, I think the passport book in Holland's a
I
little
will tell you, so I grew up in Seattle, so I grew up in a bigger town than Reno, and I did think to myself, I don't know how that's going to work out in Reno.
They sold you on some Johnny
say,
Cash line of recruiting posters or something.
Yeah, I was a little concerned that it wasn't going to be like ideal for me because I was more of a city person. But I came to Reno, and one of my first, and this again is just like right place, right time. I was the international marketing manager for a small period when I came to Reno, and I wasn't in Reno for more than a couple of months. And my boss approached me and he said, "We have this special project. We don't really have a person to like put it all together, and why not you?" And the special project was the very original Wheel of Fortune game.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that was, we had just signed a license with Sony. We had gotten the patent from Anchor, and we needed to put together a licensed slot machine, which had never happened before.
That's wild. So
crazy.
you were on the team that did the first iteration of Wheel of Fortune.
Correct. Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I led the mothers and fathers of the original Wheel of Fortune. Yeah. Maybe I'm like the grandmother.
What was the hardest part about building up a whole presentation first time? What's your biggest takeaway from getting a project like the Wheel of Fortune, which is arguably one of the most well-known slot machines still to date?
Yeah, but at the time we had no idea,
Yeah.
We had a projection. If we got 750 units out, we'd be happy.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I think there's like 20 some thousand out or something. So so we didn't know what we had because nobody had ever done it before. And we were all kind of flying blind together. We had to hire a sound person to work on the project because to that point we only had like the canned sounds for the games. And so Jeff Laxo, shout out to him if he's still at IGT. I think he might be. He was our first sound guy at IGT, and he had to he was the one that sort of, created some of the very specific sounds that are like ubiquitous now for Wheel of Fortune. And the idea of putting like cosmetics on a machine was also brand new. So there was called the antlers, which were like the outside gold features.
Right.
Those were something that nobody had ever done before, and having an external speaker had never been done before. So we were like doing a lot of firsts, but we didn't, we were just trying to get something done. We really didn't think about it at the time. And we had no idea, again, what it would become. It just obviously became just such a monster. So
yeah, I was gonna say kudos to you because we have this conversation from time to time. I think we even talked with it about to Joe Kamikow, but you only get one shot to push a game out correctly, right? I mean,
especially
I can't even think of the number of games that should have been just as big as Wheel of Fortune, but never were because they weren't either marketed correctly, they weren't pushed out to the marketplace correctly. So kudos to you because that game had legs and
right place, right time. Yeah. But I can tell you a story of a total failure.
Let's hear it.
that came a few years later that will surprise you that it was such a failure. I was in charge of a project called Vision, which was to put a digital or an LCD topper in the top glass instead of top glass on a machine, and then we created some games that went with it. Now everything is digital, but at the time that was like really unheard of to see something digital related to the game, and it didn't do well. I think we were ahead of our time, but later, so that was wrong time, right? Product wrong time. But later, also became a huge thing where that's the standard now and has been for many, many years.
Yeah, I couldn't even think about Plex, right? I mean, maybe on the outside of a sign, like you said, the antler type deal, but It's weird. I wouldn't even know what to do with you. You hand me Plex down, I'm just going to staple it to the wall for like a tribute to the old days.
Yeah.
Conversions definitely used to look different. I remember
Yeah.
getting them on the cruise ships, and they would come in big packages because you would get the glass, you would get.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just the
Even
hardware.
back
For a
when
while, it
they
was
were
real
real
glass. Yeah.
Real
Yeah,
glass and real
Yeah.
strips and the EPROMs, the physical EPROMs,
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
buttons. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
pain in the butt just to do a conversion.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then you were recruited to do this special Wheel of Fortune project. And then did that kind of catapult your journey into
Yeah.
licensing? Cause
Yeah,
I was gonna say, that's
definitely.
kind of your brand is you're the, I don't want to say queen of licensing. I don't know if that's offensive or not, but you're definitely one of the premier license, I feel like people.
Yeah,
in the biz, so.
being involved with the very first brand,
Yeah.
and obviously it went well. So everybody was like, let's do that again. Let's do that a bunch of times.
27,000 more games would be great.
Yeah. So we then went and launched Jeopardy, and the third license was Elvis. And then I think WMS started seeing what was going on, and they're like, we got to get into that game. They came out with Monopoly, and that started like a whole trend that over, I guess, the first brand was 96. And so here we are, 25 years later, and it's really ebbed and flowed over the years. Some years brands are bigger than others. We've gone through sort of cycles with it. But yeah, I've been involved with it for a really long time. It's been under my purview for a long time. And I think probably the most unique part about sort of what I brought to the table is so often, when I'm working with the game developers and we're trying to figure out what the customers would want to play, I was the only female in the room. It'd be like, 20 guys and me, and we'd be like figuring out what kind of brands that we should bring to the market. And so
no pressure, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times they were younger as well. And so I sort of had a famous line when they would bring something up and I'd be like, let's call your mom and see what she has to say about it.
Perfect.
And they'd be like,
cold-blooded.
Yeah, I got to remind you who our player is. It's your mother, not you.
Exactly.
So if we're getting this, let's back up. So we went sales internationally, sales domestic, into marketing, and then licensing.
Yeah, well, at development, I was on the development side, which licensing kind of comes, goes hand in hand with product development, product management, and product development as well.
Very. So you've had your hands in all the buckets.
She does.
Yeah, it's been a few years now. So yeah, I've had a really great opportunity to do lots of different things, and that's like one of the messages when I do speak with, especially people who are just starting out in the industry, and especially women. I say, look, I was at IGT, for example, for 17 years, and I was able to go from office administrator, office assistant to senior vice president of product development. That is possible. So never sell yourself short, and never think you're going to be stuck. Because if you keep at it, you can grow. And I'm like a great example of that. And a lot of my promotions were actually almost, I don't want to say forced on me, but because I was walking the walk and talking the talk, it was noticed. And I think that's also really important. Hard work generally pays off if you're in the right environment.
You remind me, one of my favorite Denzel Washington quotes, he just says, hard work works, right? Like that's as simple as that. But when you mentioned talking to, new folks in the industry or, potentially women who are looking to climb, you say it's kind of like, don't settle. Do you think that's one of the big obstacles where they're just like, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the manager forever versus I'm going to really go after the SVP role or the CEO's role or whatever. Is it just the mindset you think is one of the big obstacles?
I think I think there's multiple things.
Sure,
I think one of them is, and I'm going to generalize, so this doesn't account for, both genders, but generally speaking, when a male looks at an advancement, they're like, okay, I have 6 out of the 8 qualities necessary. I'm golden. I'm going to go for it. Whereas a female will generally say, oh, I don't have 2 of those, so I probably shouldn't go for it. So those are the kinds of mindset. So that's one mindset that I think these things are changing. I mean, when I was a younger person in this industry, I was very much on my own. It is different now. I think there are a lot more women in the industry, and I think that's normalized a bit more. But I think there are still pockets where the women that are in those roles are still kind of, they're not novelties, but they're definitely underrepresented.
Sure.
So I think that's one thing is that, we want to make sure that we encourage the women to just go for it, but make yourself known. If you don't put it in the universe isn't going to bring it back to you. And I fully believe that. And that means when the universe includes like your boss and your boss's boss, as well as the general ether, you've got to, if you know what you want, and it's weird when I was like in high school, if somebody asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have said, without having any context for anything, I would have said I would like to be the most senior female at a company.
Hmm.
I remember thinking that.
You did it.
I was the most senior
Quite a few
female
times,
at IGT
yeah.
for a few years. But so how that like got there was, not very calculated in a lot of ways, but I did sort of put out into the universe that general notion that this is what I want to go for. So let me see how I can get there. But I had to take some risks along the way. You gotta put yourself out there a little bit.
That's crazy. So now you're at the top of your game. You're running an organization. You've been through the weeds. What is your vision of a successful slot company? Like when you're like, okay, I am at the top of the ship now. What was the most important thing for you for Gaming Arts and creating an awesome slot company, which you've done? You guys have amazing games. What was like your main focus when you got to that point? Is just hiring good teams or like?
Yeah, so some of the things I love about Gaming Arts as contrast to my prior experiences, which were in much bigger manufacturers. I love that we're this fairly small team that it really feels like we're pushing the rock together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And instead of sometimes when you're in larger organizations, you don't get a holistic view of what's going on in the company. So it's nice that I'm at a position now where I'm in charge of so many different departments that play a role, and together we are all pushing this organization forward. So there's something really satisfying about that, and I love managing people because I feel like, if you manage people well, you can really watch them blossom. And that's to me really satisfying. There are managers and leaders. Managers to me seem like they're trying to get something done for the organization, and it's more about the employees doing something for them. I feel like the better leaders are the ones that know that if they put their energy into the employee and watch them be successful, doesn't matter how you factor into that, that ultimately will grow everybody. And that's a better recipe than just, having somebody trying to make you look good.
Yeah.
Well, I think I love that whole talk track. So for me, it's, same, right? When you try to, like, for example, somebody on the team, you say, I just want to make you the best version of yourself. And then to your point about the company objective, you go, hey, let's see what you can come up with. If one of those things solves here, that's great. But usually by letting them have total kind of creative freedom, you get more than just what you thought. It's like, was it Henry Ford? It's like, hey, if I asked them, they would have just said a faster horse wouldn't have the car, right? So it's like part of it is if you just tell somebody, hey, I need you to do this Excel sheet, they're going to go, okay, but what about these 14 other ideas that I have that you're not even asking me about because you're not worried about me? You're worried about hitting a number or hitting something else. So
for sure. Yeah. And I hope that I encourage my staff to bring those ideas to the table without fear, because that's something that I did earlier in my career. And I know that really helped. And, like, coming back to the licensing side, there were multiple times that I brought certain licenses to the table that I was flat out laughed at, and told that's not going to work.
Is there one you can talk about that you were just like kind of the only woman in the room pushing for?
I'll give you an example at IGT as well as at Valley. So at IGT, Sex and the City was one that the idea was brought to us by HBO, and I was like, wow. That's really interesting. It was definitely more female focused than anything that had been out in the industry for forever. And I was like, there's enough to work with here. There's rich characters. There's a lot of seasons. I like this a lot, And so I brought it to the collective team, and they were like, no, that's for like girls, and and
it's
again,
like, call your moms, right? Go back.
There were a lot of guys on the teams who are very forward thinking as well. But, generally speaking, I kind of got a little bit like, oh, and my boss at the time also said, you know what, I don't understand it and I don't agree with it, but if you really want to do it, go for it. And so that was one that sort of was against the grain.
What a boss. Who's that boss? We got to shout that person out.
I'm not going to do his name.
Okay, never mind. He knows he or she knows who they are.
Said, but that was he was being a good leader because he was supporting my vision, even though he didn't have the same vision. So, and then I'll give it to Joe Kamenko, because he really then he came in quickly thereafter and took the brand and made it something great. And so I think that one worked out really well. And then the other one that was a little bit against the grain at Valley was Titanic, bringing Titanic to the team and saying, and this was so fascinating to me when I kind of brought it to the room. They were, there was a couple more girls in the room now. And I said, what about Titanic? And they were like, well, why would you want to do a movie about a boat that sank? It's like a disaster film. And all the girls were like, no, it was a love story, right. And it was an amazing love story. And again, it was rich in visuals and music and all of that kind of stuff. And so that was another example where it sort of was like not obvious at first, but then it tended to work out, because the reality is there are a lot of older women that play slots. And so giving them something that's pretty specific for them, I think is important. But I will also acknowledge that I don't always get it right as well. I've seen some other brands go out that I was like, I don't know about that one. And it's done really well. So it just goes to show that the diversity of thought, I think, is what's really important, that you get a number of viewpoints to make the right collection of games.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I think of licensing, I don't know if this is true, but like you're sitting there and you name brands, Sex and the City, right? You're talking about Titanic. I start thinking of, was it Sarah Jessica Parker, Leo DiCaprio? Do you get to meet any of these people, or is it all just lawyers and agents that you're dealing with? And then, hey, maybe you get a celebrity sighting here and again, or is it?
A couple. I've pitched to a couple celebrities in my past. But my most but far and away, my most famous interaction, if you will, was with Michael Jackson.
Awesome.
And I toured Michael Jackson, the trade show booth, in 2003. So G2E? G2E. G2E 2003, which was a bizarre experience and amazing all in one. And to be fair, we weren't actually looking at him for a brand. He came into our office. This is when I was with IGT. He came into our office and said, "I'd like to buy some slots for Neverland." And
no way.
And yes. And the receptionist said, "Well, all of our salespeople are at a trade show." And he said, "Well, can I go?" And she said, "Well, sure, but how does that work?"
You need a badge. She probably thinks it's like, wait, what? So Michael Jackson himself just walks into the office and says,
"Yes,
want to buy some stuff?" And she just kicks him over to G2E. That's okay.
Yeah, but they arranged it. So they called Ron Rivera, who was our sales VP, and said, "We have Michael Jackson here." And I think Ron was like, "What?
Is this a prank?" Yeah, who's talking?
Could that possibly be? Yeah, but Ron was like, "Okay." And so he came over to me and he's like, "Listen, Michael Jackson's coming." And I also did the what? And this was the last day of the show, and we were all tired, and we had to go tell everybody, you can't break down the booth. You're gonna have to leave it up. We've got a VIP coming in.
The King of Pop is coming to the show.
And so the show closed at like 4:00, I think, that year. And we were waiting and waiting. We were like, "Oh, what are we doing here? He's not going to show." And like 4:45, he walks in. He walks in with one bodyguard, and we spent almost an hour with him.
Oh my gosh. What was his favorite machine?
I was going to say, what was that?
It's funny. So this was when we were doing a ton of branding. Yep. And so he would walk around and say, his favorite was probably Marilyn Monroe, because he knew Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And Elizabeth Taylor, and so, and again, we got to the Elizabeth Taylor game, and he'd be like, "Oh, I gave her so many of her jewels," and we would like throw out these little stories.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. But he was lovely, I have to say. My random takeaways: he's much taller than you would expect. Okay, I'm 5'9", and I was wearing heels, and we were about eye to eye. So I think he's like
6 foot. Yeah.
He's got to be like 5'11" or so.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people had the sense that he was not a very big guy. He was really lovely. And it was interesting. We were touring the booth, and I was so involved with just showing him around. I didn't realize that our entire booth had gotten surrounded by all the people in the trade show. But you could hear a pin drop. Like everybody, and nobody walked onto the carpet, but everybody was on the borders of our booth, just staring at us like, "Is that real? Is that Michael Jackson?"
Yeah.
So that was kind of when I all of a sudden looked up and saw there were like 300 people staring at us. I was like, "Wow, that's," but they were so, they were so respectful, which I really appreciated. But then we invited them. He was like, "I'll sign some autographs if they want." So and all of a sudden it was like,
hopefully he signed a contract, right?
Yeah,
he got his autographed on the con.
Yeah.
I want to know the salesman that got that. I wonder if it was built into his budget the next year. Like, Michael's good for 10 games.
Yeah.
He's coming.
Well, that was also interesting, trying to explain to him he couldn't actually buy machines for Neverland because it wasn't legal.
Yeah. We love you and everything you're doing, but you can't buy these.
That some people can really wrap their minds around right away.
Yeah, that's wild.
So there were definitely some perks to the licensing side for sure.
That's cool. So did you ended up getting his autograph, or did you keep it straight?
We did have him sign a couple pieces of glass.
Cool. Yeah,
and we donated those to the building, to the IGT. So hopefully there's a piece somewhere hanging with his signature on it.
I was going to say, it's always hard. I mean, obviously in that role, you're more official, but working security, odd jobs, growing up in Vegas, you'd see a ton of celebrities and they're always going to tell you, "Hey, no autographs, do not, keep it straight." I'm like, dang, not everybody I would care for, but that, he's such a legend and icon, right? You go, man, that'd be a cool one just to have in your collection,
And it is one of those, because I have been with enough celebrities or people of note that it is, on the outside, you're like super calm and trying to maintain a professionalism like you would with anybody.
Sure.
But on the inside, you're sort of like,
like I danced to your whole music collection or whatever, right? Or I watched your show. Yeah, it's wild. Oh man.
So do you have any plans for doing any licensing content for gaming arts, or is there anything you wished you
I
guys had?
definitely wouldn't rule it out. I feel like right now the industry, I've seen it go very cyclical where brands become more and more competitive and they're more and more out there. When they become more and more, they tend to be more and more expensive as well.
Right.
Sure.
And then I think the manufacturers kind of realize, wow, we've really spent a lot of money on all this and we're not completely sure that as a whole, it might have been worth our while. Maybe we should dial it back. And then they see examples of other non-branded games that do incredibly well, and so it's a balance. I do believe when you pick the right brand and it has elements that you can create a game. I don't like the idea of brand slapping where you just sort of, take their image and put it on the machine and now you've got a game, it has to have something in it that you can create the bonus experience with. That's why Wheel of Fortune was so perfect, the wheel in the game, the wheel on the machine. And there are other brands that are like that where there's an obvious tie-in. So when there's an obvious tie-in, I feel like it works and it hits the mark. So yeah, I would totally look at doing that again, but I'd want it to be the right brand and not at these crazy prices. Sometimes they got to be. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, so like, what do you look for when you're going into a licensing? So you mentioned elements of the brand that you could pull into a game. I'm sure there's some demographic concerns. You're going, okay, does this appeal to the core game? Like what are some of the other things you're looking for when you're evaluating? Does a brand make sense? Obviously price is important too, but
what are the assets? What do they have that's available to them? For example, we've been approached by some musical artists that would like to license their image, but they don't own the rights to their songs, for example. So that's not a great marriage because you believe that the player is going to be disappointed because there's some elements that they would expect that aren't there. And same with maybe films that you can use all characters except for. And that can be tough because then you're not, again, you're disappointing. It'd be like kind of like if there was a Friends slot machine, but there was no Monica,
no Ross.
You got to have it all. So having those various elements and having features that you can tie into a unique bonus experience, I think is important. And there's been, like I said, there's been a number of brands that I didn't expect might have done well just because I didn't see that they had all the recipe. But a creative game designer, and that's probably the number one for me when I was looking at licenses was, is there somebody on the game development team that's passionate about this brand? Because if you just sort of force a brand onto a game developer and say, hey, you're going to do the Hanes socks machine. And they're like, well, don't really like Hanes socks or whatever, sorry for Hanes.
Not buying you any more drinks. Yeah, you're out. Yeah, that's it.
So you got to get a game developer that has a passion for it. That's first and foremost, I think. So I always looked for that when I was, with Sex and the City. We had a gal that a very, very skilled game developer at IGT who raised her hand and said, yeah, if you need somebody to do this game, I'll do it. And same at Bally, Kim Cohn, who raised her hand for Titanic and said, yeah, I see the vision, give me a crack at it. I think that's really important to get that somebody with passion who's going to think about it a lot. And try to figure out the best use of the brand.
So talking about old ways, I think that licensing content is still going to be important in the future. And you've kind of seen the growth of that. What are you most excited about in our space that's coming, that's new and fresh? What are you guys most focused on and excited about?
Yeah. So, from a gaming arts perspective, I know that you guys had Keith on an episode and I love Keith. And and his whole team's mantra is fun for the gambler. So that's kind of where we are going as gaming arts is let's create like some entertaining experience, but keep in mind that we're the gamblers are paying our games, and we want to make sure they have the gambling experience, the gambling ride, that adrenaline, as well as the ha ha ha, or isn't that cute? So I think that's really important, and so that's where we're looking at. We're looking at just ways to try to find just new and innovative opportunities on the slot floor. And as years go on, sometimes people might say it gets harder because there's more competition, there's more content, and that's all true. But I still am a big believer that you can break through with something that's new and unique. So I think that the the market's been on a little bit of a pause this last year, as certain jurisdictions, especially, have been closed or hit pretty hard because they have restrictions on them for what they can do, and their players are also struggling.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to when there's happier days ahead, and there's a resurgence of all, not just some of the properties, but all the properties are healthy and well again. The players are back. And, I think that a diversity of content, I think, is really important. And I think it's all the things that are being examined now. It's some skill, but not all skill. It's some brands, but not all brands. It's some more complex games, but not all. It's just making sure that there's a little bit of something for everybody. I think if I were managing a floor, I would strive for.
Yeah, sure. You guys did a great job in the high limit space. I didn't even see that coming. So congrats.
Yeah, again, trying to find our little spots. And we have again, Casino Wizard that's kind of doing well. Also, because it's 4 table games, that's in a slot cabinet.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit the right place at the right time. And there's other electronic table games out there, but nothing that's specifically like this.
And was that planned? Based off of, or was it just because I saw that come out and I go, wow, they were on their development program from day one.
I wish we could say that, March came and we said, we better do this because when they reopen, but truth be told, it's a complicated game. We'd probably been working on it for a year prior. Yeah. And again, we were trying to find the niches that we can go in so that we're not like like a lot of people trying to go head to head with the Lightning Links of the world and some of the other games that have done really well, that there's a lot, 88 Fortunes, there's a lot in those spaces already. So let's see what else we can bring to the party.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always challenging, I feel like, whether it's branded or unbranded, to do the new stuff because, right now it's almost like the safe play. It's just to do a Link style game, right? Because obviously Lightning Link and Dragon, these others are number one, but there's a lot of residual that you could get to play your game, right? So even though you may not be number one, you'll be a good performer. Whereas then you come out with a new math and it's like, it could be dual screen IGT all over again. Like, hey, maybe it's ahead of your time. It's not bad, but it's not the thing that's hot right now. So it's probably a hard balance. What do you look at percentage wise? I don't even know if you can answer that, but is it like 50% tried and true, 50% new, gamble math, or is it more or less like, how do you kind of approach that as a head of development or head of strategy like yourself when you're looking at that?
Well, I think that if we were to look at our portfolio, we would probably say maybe 25% was pretty far out the box.
Yeah.
And the other 75% were twists on various recipes.
Got it.
But we may have combined a couple recipes. Not just taking one thing and put a twist on it, but it might be like two ideas that have already been in the market, and then let's throw a third thing in. So we're definitely inspired by what's out there today.
Of course.
Everybody should be, to kind of try to figure out where this is all going. But swinging for the fences with that idea that's completely unusual, I think is also really important.
For sure. You talk about Lightning Link as that current example. That was new when it came out. And then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, everyone wants this. And it's just bananas, right? And now they're the biggest company in the biz. Yeah.
And that was a huge hit, and it still continues to be a huge hit. And there's probably, 10 variants of that, maybe, if you kind of look.
Yeah.
And a lot of those are pretty good hits as well. So, there is something to be said about, again, being inspired by success. But, if everybody does that, then it gets, eventually it won't work anymore. You got to do something different.
Yeah. That's how you're to the start of the next cycle.
Yeah.
Everyone's already done it.
Yeah. Are you guys planning to do any online, like licensing any content for any online platforms, or is that kind of?
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of that. We're trying, because we're a relatively small group, we do have a pretty focused vision right now of North America. We're looking land-based North America. Let's see what we can do to grow this space as much as we can. And so we don't want to get too distracted by special projects. However, we are doing a few special projects. So Ruby Sevens, for example, they do social casinos for a number of larger and smaller operators.
Yep.
We're working to give them our games. So you'll see our games there. We're looking to get into the historical horse race space.
Cool.
Nice.
So that's another area of opportunity, which hopefully will also lead into class 2, which is another area. So so we want to be careful about that because we have limited resources. So we want to make sure that we don't, again, get too many things
Spread
going
too thin,
and really keep our focus on amazing, interesting, games that players want and for the North America space. And then eventually we'll start working our way out to some of, outside the borders.
Very cool.
Awesome. And I wanted to ask earlier, so we were talking about you being the most senior female in your company. You've done that a couple times, but unless I'm wrong again, which I've clearly been, have you sat in the CEO's chair yet? And if not, is that an aspiration of yours? Do you want to say, hey, do you want to take that leap? Or are you saying I'm good kind of doing what you're doing?
I will tell you what I've learned about myself, and self-awareness, I think, is so important. And you get more and more self-awareness, I think, as you age. At least I did. And what I know about myself, I'm best at the second job. Yeah. I'm really good at getting stuff done and execution. I'm not as good of a visionary. And I know other people, and I think the CEO job especially, they need to be really good strategists and visionary people. And so I feel like, where I am right now with Mike Dreitzer, we're a great combination because we have very complementary skill sets. And, again, being a small company and a little bit, everybody works with everybody. We are fondly known as mom and dad. And there will be times that somebody will say, well, okay, dad said no, so I'm going to try mom.
Nice.
So I like actually, so COO all day. Yeah. So I'm comfortable with that concept. CEO, I don't think so. I think that there would be better suited people. And I know that about myself.
There you go. Yeah, no, I was just curious because I mean, for me, I always look at you and go, whatever you want to do is well within the realms. That's why I'm just like, do you want it? Because obviously you could do it. Yeah. So I was going to ask you about the mom thing. So does anyone ever get one past you guys? Like I know like in our house, like my kids are small. So like they'll ask you'll hear, I won't know. They ask my wife, they'll ask mom saying, hey, we want cookies. Right. And then she'll say no, they'll come to me and go, Dad, I'm like, I don't know. It's clean in here. Like, and then you'll just hear from the other room, don't give them any cookies, right? Like there's just like, oh, okay, I guess I was out of sorts. Does anyone ever get past you guys, or are you pretty tight defense in terms of mom, dad being on the same?
There probably been a little bit of, where they may have expanded upon or interpreted what the request was in a different way.
Sure.
Where it's like, oh, is that what I agreed to?
Oh man, I did sign here. I guess that's on me.
No, but usually, I love our team, and our team's awesome.
No cookies for you, Sherry.
Yeah, no cookies. No cookies. Yeah, Sherry's out on the cookies. Are you, before we jump to our final two, are you good cop or bad cop in that mom-dad relationship?
I would say mostly I'm good cop.
Oh, nice.
There are times though I've had to be bad cop. But I would say I'm probably more good cop than bad cop. But
Perfect.
You got to sort of sometimes wear both hats depending on what's going on.
No doubt. Yeah, we always joke in our house that it's always good cop mom. So I'm always, it seems like the good cop. So that's my area of strength.
Well, I think I'm more likely the one that will sit them down and say, well, okay, let's discuss this, and I'll explain to you my rationale about why I don't think this maybe is a great idea. And I kind of go into it a little bit more, where Mike might be a little bit more direct and be like, yeah, no.
Rejected. Yeah, no worries. That's hilarious.
So we ask all of our participants to share a gambling story with us. And it doesn't have to be one where it's like a crazy night, just a fun time that you remember you were out with your friends. And we're a gambling podcast, so we like to get everyone's fun stories.
So I was really thinking about this because I couldn't think of like a single experience that stuck out. But when I started thinking about my better experiences, I realized that I have a lucky place, and a lot of us travel and we're in resorts and casinos all the time. Yep. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but there are certain properties that I just am more motivated for whatever reason to want to go down to the floor and play.
Yes.
And others where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to bed or, whatever.
Right. Yep.
So
I fully agree.
For whatever reason, Oklahoma it's my lucky place.
Awesome.
And I've played all over the world, but I seem to just be more lucky when I'm playing at some of the properties in Oklahoma. I don't know why. So whenever I travel to Oklahoma, for sure, that's when I take my biggest bankroll with me, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to my lucky place.
Do you like the red screen games? Let's just call it out. The VGT.
No, that would be other games. Yeah, other games. Of all manufacturers. There's a couple of IGT games that I love. There's a couple of Aristocrat. There's a Konami game that I seem to always do well on.
That's awesome.
So I would say that's my lucky gaming place. Good old Oklahoma. Who knew?
That's it. Yeah. Just go see Pookie and win some money. It's perfect.
Mike, what's your lucky casino? I would say mine's Thunder. I like playing at Thunder Valley.
You seriously win the most, I feel like, in Northern Cal. Yeah, Thunder and
Brian's going to kill me for saying that, but
hey, you mentioned his as well. I don't know. I feel like I've had some good luck down with you at Pechanga. So Southern Cal, Saboba's been good. And then last week, I'm probably a little biased, but last week I was up at Tulalip, won $2,200 jackpot playing one of their games. So
Right
Soleil
on.
Up's always
You're in
another
my
one.
old neck of the woods.
That's it. Yeah, just north of your stomping grounds. But
That's right.
yeah, it was fun. So those are probably my three if I was just going for it. But
Cool.
yeah, all good. And then Gene, the other question we ask everybody is we say, hey, issue the max bet challenge. So for us, it's you were gracious enough to come on and you answered the challenge because Keith actually called you out, which was, I don't know if you even knew that, but it was good. So you thank you for stepping up and jumping on. And then who would you like to see us chat with in the future?
Well, I was thinking about it, and there's so many worthy people out there
Sure.
for sure. And I don't know if you have in the past have had a female game development leader on. So I would and she doesn't know this, so she's going to be like, what did you do? But I'd love to nominate Kim Cohn from Valley, who's been a game development director for many years and has done some really incredible things. And I think she would be a great guest for you to have and to get, a perspective of what it's like to be a female developer in the gaming space.
That would be cool.
Gene, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. This was awesome. It's fun chatting with you.
It was nice spending some time with you guys.
That was fun.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we'll catch you soon here.
That sounds good. Awesome. Have a good one.